What's up, you guys? So today we're going to be doing a Hammond recaps, or a Hammond recap, which is a new annual series I'm going to be starting up. And basically, I'm just going to be reviewing every Hammond collection figure that is released within a certain year, saying my thoughts on them, and which one's the best and which one's the worst for each wave and throughout the whole year, like best of the wave / best of the year. And so, so let's get to it. So there were a grand total of 14 figures released for the Hammond collection this year, 13 of those being mainline releases, and one of those being San Diego Comic-Con exclusives. We got about 9 small figures, two large figures, and one medium-sized figure for the mainline, and a large figure for the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive figure. And so, let's just get into the reviews. Starting off, we have the January 2025 Hammond Collection figures, which there were a total of 3 small figures released, and they are all pretty mediocre. We're just going to be starting off with this review with the absolute worst Hammond Collection figure, the Hammond Collection Scutosaurus. Now, this thing is an abomination. I don't understand why they thought this was okay to release, and overall, this is just horrible in every sense of the word. But for whatever reason, people like this thing, including the YouTuber Gary the Gremlin, which once jokingly put the Scutosaurus in its own tier and all their figures in like F tier or something. Which, out of all the figures, you chose this one to glaze. Now there is a very minimal chance that Gary the Gremlin will see this video, or any of my videos for that matter. And honestly, he probably doesn't know that my channel exists. But if he sees this video, then I'm pretty sure Gary the Gremlin will mark me as common enemy number 1 after seeing this, because, I'm just gonna be blunt. This figure is the worst Hammond Collection figure to have ever been released. And it's not even just Gary who will probably disagree with me, because a couple other people commented on my videos and, basically didn't like my thoughts on this figure. But let's just review it before I keep yapping. So the jaw can open and close, and for reference, that's what it looks like from the front. And I don't know how you could accept that in any way. The head has a very terrible ball joint here, which makes sense because the figure's head is sculpted awkwardly. And there is a huge neck joint here. The elbows can rotate a full 360 and spread from the body. And so, the arms, and so can the elbows, and the hands can move up and down and rotate a little bit. The legs can rotate a full 360, and, actually, no, they can't. And they can spread apart. And the knees can move up and down and rotate a full 360, but not the feet. And the tiny little tail has a little ball joint in there. And, I mean, it's cool, because the Scutosaurus finally gets a figure, but then again, that makes me very angry, because out of all the figures, the one time that we could have gotten an articulated Scutosaurus, they decided to absolutely annihilate it in the worst way possible with this thing. So, just get a mainline Scutosaurus. Up next, we have the baby Triceratops, or as I like to call, Reznor. And this figure is very hit or miss. It's definitely much better than the adult Triceratops, but then again, it's just very mediocre. The jaw can open and close, the head can move up and down and rotate a full 360. However, there is no ball joint, which disappoints me entirely. And the arms can rotate a full 360 and spread from the body. This is actually the best spreading action that we get from any herbivores that are like this. And by herbivores, I mean quadrupedal herbivores. Thankfully, they have improved it since the Triceratops and Ankylosaurus days. But anyways, the elbows can move up and down and rotate a full 360, and so can the hands. The legs can rotate a full 360. No, we're not going to try that. And they can also spread from the body. And the knees can move up and down and rotate a full 360, and so can the feet. And the tail is on a ball joint and can move around a little bit. And I do appreciate that they've made the paint go out all the way to like halfway through the tail, which nowadays you'd be lucky if there even is paint on the tail. So that is nice. Apparently there was a variant of this figure released where the green patterns on it were lighter. And, well, I'm not going to spend my time looking through eBay trying to find that green variant, so, yeah. And besides, I mean, like, do I really need to count it? Because although I am a variant collector for the minis, I don't really care too much about Hammond collection variants. I mean, for crying out loud, the Ceratosaurus either has gold or yellow eyes from like 3 years ago. Yeah, nah. And last but not least, we have the Atrociraptor Ghost. And, well, they haven't made an Atrociraptor since, which, I mean, I understand they just made it, so obviously there's going to be a bit of a wait. But hopefully in 2026 we'll have different Atrociraptors, and hopefully they won't absolutely annihilate the sculpts like they did with the Velociraptor of this year, which we'll get into in a bit. And hopefully they'll just reuse this sculpt, which I know I don't say too often, but if Mattel loves to reuse sculpts, then they should definitely be reusing the Atrociraptor sculpts. And, yeah, this figure is pretty decent. The ball jointed neck actually works for this figure, unlike others, which we'll get into in a bit. Anyways, it can move around a bunch. The jaw can open and close. I don't really like the inside of the mouth too well. But then again, I mean, like, what do you expect? The arms can rotate a full 360 and spread from the body. The legs can rotate a full 360 and spread from the body as well. And the tail is on a ball joint, and there is a wire in the tail, which I don't really like to bend. Oh, and a knee joint can move up and down and rotate a full 360, and so can knee feet. And, yeah, let's get into the ranking. So, I don't have a tier list loaded for these guys, because honestly, I don't really feel like making one for these. But, yeah, just for some simple ranking. In last place for, like, the absolute worst figure of this year, yeah, it's gonna go to the Scutosaurus. No questions asked. Oh. Number 2, we got the baby Triceratops, which, I mean, yeah. Honestly, there's not really a lot wrong with it, actually. It just doesn't really work too well. Or, it's not really my thing. And undoubtedly, in first place for the best Hammond collection figure of this wave is the Atrociraptor Ghost. And, in fact, it is... I don't think I've actually made that video yet. But coming soon is my entire list of small Hammond collection figures from worst to best. And, yeah, so let's move on. And here we have the June 2025 Hammond collection figures, where there have only been 3 small figures released, along with a large and an extra large one. And, yes, I am counting the Spinosaurus as an extra large figure, because, I mean, the size difference is noticeable, so obviously, like, I don't know, yeah, but let's just move on. You know what, let's just start off with these big figures, so that way they can stop blocking the smaller ones. First up is the Hammond Collection Spinosaurus, and, well, everyone and they mama wanted the Hammond Collection Spinosaurus, and I think they have botched it in the worst way possible. Now, I do actually really like the sculpt, but there are some problems with this figure. First and most obvious problem, it's brown, in which it is supposed to be more of a grayish brown rather than a fully brown, if that makes sense. And second of all, where's all the blue in the sail? And third of all, the tail just flat out looks like candy. Now, I get it. This is a kid's toy. It's meant for ages 8 and up. And I know at least one person is going to be commenting, or at least thinking about this. Like, it's a kid's toy. You're not supposed to be expecting, movie accuracy. Okay, well, here's some things about that. First of all, these are meant to be premium collector figures, which means it should be appealing to adults. So, obviously, we're expecting a little bit more accuracy than normal. And second of all, I don't know if you may have noticed, but around this time in June, yes, it's the Sinoceratops box, but I don't care, they put this little thingy on here, True Effects. And if we flip it over, we can see premium details for enhanced realism, meaning these are supposed to be even more accurate than usual. But as we can see here, this is not accurate. Or at least not accurate color-wise. So before you go, oh, this is meant to be a kid's toy and whatnot, yes, you're right on one hand, but on the other hand, these are meant to be a bit more accurate than your average Mattel toy. So your point's been disproven. And it also doesn't help that for whatever reason, these figures were very scarce upon release. So that's nice. But recently, I think the Spinosaurus on Target got bumped down back to $60, or no, $64, which I don't know if it's still on sale for that much, but yeah, for whatever reason, these figures are very expensive. Luckily, people have still been finding them up to this day, or at least up to early December, which I guess is good. But at the same time, I mean, like, yeah, I think we're gonna have to cover losses with this figure. But anyways, for articulation, there's 2 joints in the jaw. It can open that wide, and it can also close that wide. I don't like how wide this jaw opens. I mean, obviously it's meant to be obviously it's a Spinosaurus, so it's going to have some very weird jaw movements, but I like to keep the lower jaw open, because that looks way more realistic. And besides, the skull does not move upwards whenever the jaw opens. Anyways, the head can move left and right and up and down. There's no rotation due to the way this thing is sculpted. And the neck can move around a little bit. For whatever reason, a lot of batches had very loose necks, and people have had to split these things open to fix that. Luckily, mine appears to not have that issue. Well, this is actually my second one, because I tried fixing my first one and it ended pretty horribly. But, yeah, so that's something. And also, these things are completely hollow inside, which, I mean, it may not be the biggest problem in the world. I mean, the figure alone is already pretty top-heavy, so I feel like any extra weight would have probably ruined it a little bit, but, yeah. And the arm can rotate a full 360 and spread from the body, and so can the elbows and the hip and the wrists, in which I don't really like the rubbery hands this thing has. Yes, it does provide a little bit more pronounced detail than usual, but then again, it's a bit squishy, and it also makes the rotating very finicky. My original copy had a quality control issue in the left arm where it would just pop off at the slightest touch, but thankfully this one is better. The legs can rotate. I don't know if I would say a full 3. Okay, it can rotate a full 360, although I don't know if I would. And they can spread apart. The knees can move up and down and rotate a full 360, and so can the ankles and the feet. And speaking of the ankles, I really do not like how these ankles are sculpted. They look very lumpy and stuff, so it's very awkward. Either make the ankle thick or thin. You decide, Mattel. And the tail has got a ball joint which you can move around a little bit, and can also rotate a full 360. And there is a little armature inside the tail, not a wire, that allows it to bend just a little bit. It's not the best in the world, but certainly isn't the worst. And so, yeah, that wraps up the Spinosaurus. And here we have the Stegosaurus, which this one is a bit easier to get, and is relatively cheap compared to these big Hammond collection figures. You can still currently get it at Target. I don't know if they've appeared in stores since. I'm pretty sure they're still popping up every now and again. But, yeah, I probably should get a couple more before I forget. But, yeah. One thing I do like to point out is that they have made the Stegosaurus quite big this time. I think the Stegosaurus figures before this one have been like half the size, and so we were kind of worried that we'd get one just about as big as the Allosaurus, or even worse, one as big as the Sinoceratops. But thankfully, Mattel pulled through and made a bigger one, so that is always appreciated. shoot, I made the Triceratops fall over. Anyway, so, yeah. Unfortunately, there is no jaw articulation, which honestly is okay, because, well, the jaw articulation would have probably made it look worse. But anyway, so the head can move around a bunch, and can rotate a full 360, and so can the neck. The arms can rotate a full 360 and can spread from the body. The elbows can move up and down and rotate a full 360, and so can the wrists. The legs can rotate a little bit, I wouldn't say a full 360 due to the way this thing is sculpted. And it can also spread from the body. And so can the knees and the feet. The tail can move around a little bit and can rotate a full 360, and there is an armature inside the tail, but due to the sculpt of the tail and all the plates, it is very, very much limited. That's about as far as it will go. And, yeah, unfortunately the Thagamizers are made of the same material, which is understandable because, you know, they like to save money, even though they have like $7 billion. And also, generally, just to make it a bit safer. But then again, I mean, like, you know, I would have accepted the soft plastic rather than this little weird, softer plastic type thing. You know, the plastic that they use for the arms, not like the hollow, not like the rubbery plastic. If that makes sense. I don't know if it does. Let's just move on to the small figures. But wait, before we move on to the smaller figures, let's get ahead and go on to the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Hammond collection book. Now, yes, I know this figure released in July, but we're just going to segue to here because, I mean, there's really no difference in release date apart from like a month. But let's just do it while we're here. So after 3 years of the Hammond Collection T-Rex's initial release, we finally got a new one, and it has barely improved since. And it's also been 2 years since we have gotten the San Diego Comic-Con Gates crowdfund, which was an absolute failure, and honestly, it's pretty good that it failed, because that's arguably the scummiest thing that Mattel has done in terms of the Jurassic franchise so far. By putting a gate along with the Hammond Collection book behind a $250 paywall, which would only then be made if there were like 5,000 people backing it. Not including the stretch goals, by the way. And so finally Mattel caved in and gave us the buck. Obviously, of course, it's still in San Diego Comic-Con exclusive fashion, instead of just giving it a mainline release. But this figure is a bit of a downgrade from the Gates crowdfund buck, but I mean, we're not going to compare it all there. If you want a real comparison, just find my San Diego Comic-Con buck review. I'm sure you'll find it. But yeah. So first of all, the teeth are an improvement, and there is a new head sculpt. But of course, since this is a buck, that's to be expected. And apart from that, nothing else has changed apart from the feet. And this figure doesn't come with dew claw paint. I actually had to go in and paint the dew claws myself. So, yeah, that's nice. But anyways, for articulation, the jaw can open pretty wide. And the tongue can also move around a little bit. The head can move side to side and up and down, and can also rotate a little bit. It can rotate a full 360 because the neck material is a bit soft, but I wouldn't recommend it. And the neck joint here is still very much limited. And can only move around that much. Which, bruh. And the torso joint is actually quite stiff this time, which is an improvement on the T-Rex's part. But it's still just, eh. And also the arm can rotate a little bit and can also move side to side instead of a full 360. Unless it's meant to be posed like this, then it would rotate then it would move up and down. But that's weird if it's supposed to be like that. The elbows can move up and down and rotate a full 360, and so can the little fingers. The legs can rotate a full 360 and spread from the body. There is a double knee joint, which makes the knee look like a tumor, and unfortunately does not have rotations. But the ankle and feet certainly do, so that's always good. And And in fact, well, whoa. The tail is on a ball joint and can move around a little bit. Unfortunately, the tail joint hasn't been improved since the initial release. So the tail will sag down over time, sadly. And there's also another ball joint in the tail. And the armature inside this part of the tail is also improved. So, yeah, even though that they had all the time in the world to improve this sculpt for future T-Rex releases, like a hypothetical T-Rex doe or maybe even a bull, or hell, maybe even Ember if they decide to make Rebirth Hammond collection figures, which hopefully they don't do. But at the same time, I mean, who knows? I am glad that they aren't making hybrids currently, but I mean, pretty soon we're going to have to get the hybrids because they are some of the missing figures, but whatever. And now we could finally move on to the smaller figures, which we're going to be starting off with the Velociraptor Tiger. And boy, is this thing just, I don't know. I mean, it is admittedly a okay looking Hammond collection Velociraptor, but there is just so much wrong with it. I mean, first of all, of course the head looks a bit better than the initial Jurassic Park Velociraptor, because they actually resculpted the head and made it look more like the Jurassic Park one. But then again, of course, they botched it by giving us a horrendous jaw, which doesn't close all the way, and also it just doesn't look right. And also, the ball joint in the neck sucks ass. And, I mean, obviously it works for the Tiger because, well, obviously it works for Hammond Collection Ghost because Ghost does have a thicker neck than this one. But I don't understand why they didn't just keep the hinged joints in which they would immediately switch back to following the next wave. So, yeah. Anyways, the neck moves around a bunch and, well, very limited. The arms can rotate a full 360 and spread from the body. And as you may notice, here we have the original Jurassic Park Raptor arms, which I totally do not understand why they decided to switch back to these arms, because they already made new arms for Blue and Delta. So, I have no idea why they would switch back to these arms, but it's just... In fact, they actually use some elements from the Atrociraptor sculpt, because they've used the Atrociraptor thighs, they use the Atrociraptor tail, foot, and they use the Atrociraptor tail. In fact, oh, right. Here we can see the thighs look very similar on the Ghost and on the Tiger Raptor, although obviously it's not too noticeable because there's a lot more patterning on this figure and it's very glossy. But as you can see, the sculpt is almost exactly the same. In fact, it is the same. And here are the tails side by side, and here are the feet side by side. Which, boy oh boy, does that sound like reusing Atrociraptor parts? So, yeah, this figure doesn't really get a lot of credit for that. So, boo. And next up, we have the Troodon, which is the most disappointing figure actually. Initially, back in the New York Toy Fair, I think this was announced. And it was shown, and it looked pretty nice, actually. It basically looked like the Jurassic Park game one. But for whatever reason, in June, they decided to switch it up and make it look worse. For whatever reason, they swapped the colors entirely, so now instead of it being white and red, it's now green and orange. Which, I do really like these colors, they shouldn't have been on this figure. But, yeah. There's some jaw articulation along with some head articulation. The head can move up and down and rotate a full 360. And the neck can move up and down and rotate a full 360. The arms can rotate a full 360, yeah. And can spread from the body, and so can the elbows. And I don't really like how this figure's hands are sculpted. I can't tell if it's about to point its finger or if it's about to curl its hands. But, yeah. And the legs can rotate a full 360 and spread from the body. And so can the knees and the foot. The tail is on a ball joint and can rotate a full 360. And the tail is on a wire, and for whatever reason, the tail is quite short. I don't know. This figure feels very slender, and I feel like it should have had a longer tail, like I'm talking Dryosaurus tail length. Like, that would have been a lot better if it were on the Troodon. But of course, Mattel is going to Mattel and just screw it up entirely. So yeah, let's just move on to the best figure in this wave, the Stygimoloch, otherwise known as Stiggy. And I freaking love HC Stiggy. It is my favorite figure. And yeah, who knows? But that does not mean it's safe from criticisms either. Because for one, this figure is very red, even though it's supposed to be more of a rusty color. And plus, there is way too much patterning on this figure. Which I get it's to make it look more stylized and more appealing for consumers, but you know, you really gotta realize maybe sometimes not a lot of vibrant colors is appealing. Like for example, this Schleich horse, which obviously is not in any way related to this. But as you can see, there's very minimal colors on here. It's just the only colors you can see on it are the snout and the mane, along with the other furry accents of this figure. And I'm pretty sure thousands of these things have been sold by now. And yes, this is a very dumb example because obviously horse toys are very popular because, you know, they're horses and there's a lot of kids that love horses. But, yeah. So, honestly, I don't know why I did that. For whatever reason, the back spikes on the Stygimoloch are very rubbery, which I guess I would understand because, you know, it's very risky to have these back spikes made out of the same soft plastic as the head. But then again, it kind of ruins the figure a little bit, but honestly, I can't really complain there. But anyways, the jaw could open and close, and the head can move around a full 360 and move around a bunch because there's a ball joint in there. Same thing with the neck. The arms could rotate a full 360, and this is very finicky because the arms are very short. And the arms can spread apart, and so can the elbows. The legs can rotate a full 360 and spread from the body. The knees can move up and down and rotate a full 360, and so can the feet. The tail is on a ball joint and can move around a bunch. And there's also a wire in the tail, which I'm not going to bend. Now, let's get into the ranking. Alright, so we're not going to be including the buck in this rating, because, I mean, it's okay on its own, and then again, it's a San Diego Comic-Con release that released back in July, so obviously it's kind of weird to rank it in the June figures. But, yeah, so for starters, number 5 is obviously the Tiger Raptor, because it is just a very horrible downgrade from the Hammond Collection Velociraptor. Velociraptor Blue and Delta, which was released a year prior. So, yeah, it loses points there, so let's get that out of here. Number 4 is the Troodon, which is just very It's just very especially since they decided to downgrade it. Number 3 would be the Stegosaurus, which is a pretty good figure on its own, but then again, it's not necessarily the best of the bunch. Number 2 would obviously be the Spinosaurus, and I sound clinically insane from saying that the Spinosaurus is number 2 on my list. But mainly because, obviously, it's got its issues, like I mentioned earlier. And plus, it's not nearly as strong as the number 1 best figure in this wave so far. Well, the best figure in this wave, the Hammond Collection Stygimoloch. And so now we can finally move on to the December 2025 Hammond Collection figures. There are only 4 figures released in this wave, 3 of those being small figures, and 1 of them being a medium-sized figure, which we have not gotten since 2023. Which means now the medium figures are finally back. At least for this wave. I don't know if they'll keep making more after this, so don't quote me on that. to get it out of the way, we're just going to start off with the Sinoceratops. And right off the bat, one thing that I missed from my review, whenever I initially reviewed this thing, is that mine actually has a quality control issue. And these things have been pretty infamous with quality control issues. I got this thing from the back, and one of them and the one that the lady brought out to me, actually had missing eye paint right here. And so luckily she was willing to go back into the back and get a new one. But unfortunately mine doesn't have the orange mine doesn't have most of the orange on this side of the frill than from what's on here. Although honestly I could care less about this figure, so this is not really too big of an issue to me. And I think it's a very appropriate time to bring out the HC parts bag. After 3 years of the Hammond collection's existence, and only like 2 out of all the dinosaurs having accessories, now these figures are coming with accessories, which I don't know if it's good or bad. Yes, some of these parts are from older figures, but hey, shut up. The accessories that this figure comes with, the ones that come applied, are the open mouth and the damaged horn, which don't necessarily look the best, but they do the job, I guess. And the figures that come outside the figure are the closed jaw and the intact horn, which are okay. But, yeah. This thing is just another glorified brick like the Hammond Collection Triceratops, and overall it's just... But anyways, so the head can move around a bunch and can also rotate a full 360. The arms can rotate a little bit and can spread from the body. The elbows can move a little bit and rotate a full 360, and so can the feet. Legs can rotate a full, no, not a full. Legs can rotate a little bit and can also spread from the body. Knees can move up and down and rotate a full 360, and so can the other feet, the back feet. There's a ball joint in the tail, and there's even a little armature inside the tail, which is very limited due to the figure's short tail. And, yeah, that's really about it for this figure. For whatever reason, currently these figures are very scarce. For whatever reason, they initially popped up on Toy Wiz back in, like, early October. And so I managed to get the first 3... And so I managed to get the 3 smaller figures from Toy Wiz. But, yeah, that's certainly weird. But now they have released, and for like 10 days they weren't in stock on the website, which I don't know why, but apparently people managed to find these things in stores. The Dryosaurus wasn't even on the website for a decent amount of time. Like as of like 2 or 3 days ago, the Dryosaurus has made it on the Target website, but unfortunately is also out of stock. But I'm pretty sure the Dryosaurus will be going in stock, I think maybe next week as of recording this video. But yeah, that's very strange. Luckily, I did manage to get my Sinoceratops while it was out of stock online. So, that's good. And I'm just waiting for the Dryo to come back to Target, so that way I can get some more. But anyways, let's move on to the smaller figures. So first up we have the Mustosaurus, which is just... it's very hit or miss, honestly. They did finally revert from using the glass eyes to just the normal painted eyes, although these do look a bit different from the previous eyes. Apparently now they're using sort of a decal, which, I mean, anything apart from glass eyes is okay in my book. But anyways, the accessories this thing comes with, already pre-installed on the figure, are the walking hands, which you can see here. And the accessories that come off the figure are these alternate curled finger hands, which I like to use to make it look like it's punching things. Like, yeah. But, yeah, apparently these figures are based off of the novel, and according to Gary the Gremlin, who loves the Lost World novels, The Mustosaurus and Ornitholestes are highly inaccurate compared to the book. Both of these figures are meant to be more green, which, I mean, I don't understand. So, this is definitely very strange. I mean, I kind of get why Mattel wouldn't want to make, like, 4 green dinosaurs, but then again, I mean, like, you know, color variety isn't really needed. I mean, remember the horse from earlier? Yes, I know that's a very dumb example, but we don't need color variety. But anyways, yeah, the mouth can open and close. It actually looks a bit better with its mouth closed. The arms can rotate a full 360 and spread from the body. The elbows can move up and down and rotate a full 360. And so can the wrists, which there is finally wrist articulation in the smaller figures, which is amazing. Although the Dryosaurus doesn't have articulated hands because, although I understand because its hands are quite small. The legs can rotate a full 360 and spread from the body. The knee joint can move up and down and rotate a full 360, and so can the feet. I do need to get another Mustosaurus because mine has a bit of off plastic here. I don't know why. The tail on a ball joint can move around a bunch, and there is also a wire in the tail. So yeah. Oh, and I forgot to mention that the neck and stuff can also move. And if I had, then sorry. And next up is the Ornitholestes, in which this figure is just very much hit or miss. Just like the Mustosaurus, but it's just... Overall, this figure looks very nice from afar, until you look at the tail, and for whatever reason, it is extremely thick. And I don't know why, but it's very thick. And as such, the wire in the tail is very limited. Obviously, it can do that. But then again, I just really don't like how thick the tail is. But, yeah, let's just move on. So the jaw can open and close, and the head can move up and down and rotate a full 360, and so can the neck. Yoink. The arms can rotate a full 360, I think. Yeah, they can, but mine's very finicky on this side. They can rotate a full 360. Oh, I don't know what's going on. And the elbows can move up and down and rotate a full 360, and so can the wrists. This is the second ever small figure with, well, this is the first ever small Hammond collection figure with full articulation. With wrist and ankle articulation. The legs can rotate a full 360 and spread from the body. The knees can move up and down and rotate a full 360, and so can the ankles and the feet. The tail's on a ball joint and can move around a bunch, and there is also a wire in the tail as we had just seen. But yeah, overall, if this figure didn't have if the figure didn't have an abnormally thick tail, this would probably be one of the better figures in this wave. And now we're going to be moving on to the Dryosaurus. Now, this figure is very infamous because of the open jaw that it comes with, which makes it look very, very demonic. But luckily, if we swap out the jaw, which for this case is very finicky because of the way this thing is sculpted and the size. Hold on, alright, got it. Luckily, the closed jaw does exist, which for whatever reason doesn't have tongue paint, unlike the Sinoceratops, which does. If you just plug this into here, then the figure is fixed. Everything is solved, and the world is back at peace. I wish. And as you can see, the plastic is starting to shed a little bit, so I don't know if that's supposed to be happening. It probably isn't, but hey, that's the Dryosaurus for you. Now, this figure is actually quite large for a small figure, which is very strange whenever we are taking into consideration that this is the Dryosaurus, which I think is a bit smaller than a person. if I can remember correctly. I don't know. The size of it will be right here. But to suffice, this is a bit larger than your average Dryosaurus. And it is also the first Dryosaurus figure in the Mattel toy line. And who knows, maybe we'll get a mini of this in like 2027. I kind of hope we do. But, yeah, anyways, so the head can move up and down and rotate a full 360, and so can the neck. The arms can rotate a full 360 and spread from the body, and so can the elbows. The legs can rotate a full 360 and spread from the body. The knee can move up and down and rotate a full 360, and so can the ankles and feet. The tail is on a ball joint and can move around a bunch, and also rotate a full 360. And the tail has a wire, and the tail is much longer than most of the small figure tails, which I would like, but yeah, the wire is the exact same length as all the other small figures' wires. If you are confused, this is the Troodon's tail, which if you look very closely, if my tablet will, if you look very closely at like here and here, you'll see a couple of little plastic circles or notches, and that signifies that there is wire inside the tail. Typically for a collectible, there would be holes at the bottom of the wired area, but for Mattel, it's just these little notches. And as you can see, the tail wire is just about as long as the tail. And now let's take a look at the notches on the Dryosaurus. And as we can see, the tail wire is the exact same length. So, yeah. Meaning that realistically, the Dryosaurus is no different from having a Troodon tail, which really pisses me off. But the tail still does have a pretty decent range of motion, and I guess it looks a bit okay, but but there should be a longer wire. Like, I would accept like half an inch longer. Like, hell, if the wire was any longer, I'd be happy, but yeah. I'm not really too much of a happy camper with this thing's tail. And with that in mind, it is now time to rank these figures. So the Sinoceratops automatically gets last place and is the worst of the bunch because I don't really... the Hammond Collection Ceratopsians are definitely not the best. And this thing is also just another glorified brick with accessories. So let's get it out of here. And the Mustosaurus gets number 3 on the list because, I mean, it's very meh. It's definitely a poor attempt at making a sauropodomorph. But yeah. And next up on number 2 is the Ornitholestes, which would have been a perfect figure. Well, not a perfect, but it would have been better if it didn't have such a thick tail. And the most surprising of all, the figure that gets in the first place is the Dryosaurus, which, in spite of its infamy and its open jaw, I really do like this figure. Like, genuinely. It might be my new favorite figure, apart from the Stiggy. And overall, the colors on it do look really nice. I really do love the transition from the turquoise or teal to green on the body. And so, yeah, let's get into the best and worst figure of this year, which we're not going to be bringing them all back because I simply just don't have time for that. So, in the Hammond Collection 2025 Hall of Fame for the worst Hammond Collection figure ever, that is awarded to the Hammond Collection Scootosaurus. Now tell me, how did you manage to achieve this? Well, because the rude-ass creator says I look like a gremlin, and I don't know why I don't know why he says that. I don't know in the slightest, and I love Gary the Gremlin. In the corner for the most mediocre figure of 2025's Hammond Collection line, we got the Baby Triceratops. Now tell me, how did you manage to win this award? Well, to be honest, the creator does forget that I exist a lot, so, yeah, I guess I definitely earned this fair and square. And now it's time for the runner-uppers. For the third best Hammond collection figure, we got the Atrociraptor Ghost. We're very sorry that you didn't quite make it on the number 1 spot, but we're glad that you've made it in the number 3rd spot. Well, it was worth a try. And I guess I won't be receiving any sort of consultation prizes. On the number 2 spot for the best Hammond collection figure of 2025, we got the Hammond Collection Stingy Malak. Wait, what do you mean I'm number 2? Who's number 1? And now, for the number 1 spot of the best Hammond collection figure of 2025 is, astonishingly, the Hammond Collection Dryosaurus. Now tell me, how did you manage to woo the creator so much that he gave you the number 1 spot for the best Hammond collection figure of 2025? You know, I honestly do not know how he managed to come to this consideration, at all. Considering that he's only had me for, I don't know, 1 or 2 months? Yeah, a month. So, I guess I'm proud to be on the number 1 list, so, yeah. I guess I'll go now. Anyways, that's it for this video, and the creator will see you guys in the next video, and, goodbye! No, this is complete BS. I demand to be first. Well, the creator has already made his own